We want to talk about your dinner. That's what we want to talk
Hello
about.
and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. No relation to Pastor Maldonado. I've said that before. I just found it
You have.
compelling to say it again. If this is your first time listening, that's the first time you've heard that. If you're a regular listener, that's the second time you've heard that. Let me welcome our co-host, Tim Reiner. Hey, Tim.
Yes, no relation to Rob Reiner, but hello, everybody. But I'm here. I'm here in the flesh.
How are you, Timmy? No coffee today,
For
Tim.
101. I can always pull
101,
out
episode
cold
101, Timmy.
coffee.
Look at that.
It's got a little trickle in the bottom, so I'm going to drink it on your behalf.
So, based on how you do it, you could just swirl a little hot water in there and then just drink it right up
That's
as fresh.
exactly how I would do it. Yes.
Oh, God.
Just put some warm water in there. I think just microwaving it. I just wonder if stuff's starting to grow in there today because it's been
Doesn't
sitting
matter.
around for a while.
Once you nuke it, it'll be fine.
You just warm it up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a hot brisket sandwich. Just warm it up.
I'm sure this is going well with the Max, glass of Chianti and a beautiful pizza as they snuggle in to watch the Turn 4 podcast.
Yeah. And just
But
remind
damn it,
everybody,
Timmy.
they are all
Awesome.
They're all awesome. Yeah.
Every single one of you.
We got to carry it on from last week. It's only been 6 days since we did this.
That's right, because we did
Yeah.
last week on Tuesday because of the holiday.
Feels good.
Nobody wants to work on the holiday.
That is true. No one should work. I don't know why
No one should
anything's
work on
open
the
on
holiday.
Memorial Day or Labor Day or
Me neither.
any other day that's a holiday. They should all have it off. But no, people still got to go out and do stuff, I guess.
Totally agree.
101?
101.
Not to
You
be
believe it?
confused
Countdown.
with- yeah. Not
One
be
to go.
confused with Dalmatians. One to go.
One to go. 102. Wrap it up at 102 because 100 wasn't good enough. Hey, before we start the Chevrolet Detroit or Chevrolet Grand Prix of Detroit, unfortunate news yet again happening, and there's definitely a theme here. I'll let you draw your own conclusions, but Théo Pourchaire, who's the driver of the number 6 Aero McLaren, as well as the Aero McLaren team, and Juncos Hollinger Racing put out a joint statement. I'll save you. Let's see. Aero McLaren and Juncos Hollinger will not tolerate any form of abuse or discrimination. Those participating in such actions are not welcome in our online community. That's just a short version of similar situations that took place last year in people making threatening remarks and comments toward Callum Ilott at the time, and now toward Théo Pourchaire, who had a statement of his own saying he was sad to receive so much hate and death threats in the last 24 hours for such a small incident in the Detroit Grand Prix. I hope people can understand that we're all humans and we can make mistakes, but it's not normal to abuse people online. Here's the thing. Let's just underscore that for a second. It is not normal to abuse people online.
It's not normal? It is.
It is not. It is not normal.
I think people's.
Unfortunately, it's trying to be normalized, but it is not normal for people to do that. I would say abnormal people do things of that nature. I think we forget, right? You want to, at long last, if you're all IndyCar fans, I don't know why we can't, with some sort of civility and decorum, disagree with each other. I don't know why anybody would feel compelled to want to pick up their phone or whatever it is, their device, and start spewing wretched things towards somebody that they don't know, somebody who, by all accounts, seems to be a nice young man. So it's horrendous. There's no place for it. There really is no place for it in the world. There's definitely no place for it in sport, and I condemn it in the strongest terms. So it's unfortunate. So, Tim,
yes,
the Grand Prix, second one.
I know, in the streets of Detroit downtown. Yes, second one.
So before we start getting into the narrative that is the prevailing narrative right now, because recency bias is what we're all subscribing to. In the prior to the race, there was a number of drivers, including Felix Rosenquist, that was talking about how, I'm paraphrasing, how actually good the race was last year and how pleasantly surprised they were with how the track
Hmm.
raced last year. You and I were pleasantly surprised with how this race raced last year.
Yeah, I
I
think we
I
were
was
for as being as tight and
Yep, short.
short.
Hmm.
Those two things, it was put on a really good show last year. A lot of good passing, a lot of good places to pass when you
Yep.
normally see that on a street course.
Yeah. So of course, everybody, including IndyCar drivers, everybody I guess gets amnesia or whatever, but or I guess everybody's expectation is perfection year over year, even though you want to hold this event to a standard in which nobody can live up to. I miss Belial and blah 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 and
I
whatever
saw a
else it
lot of that
is, and
today.
yeah, I know tons of it. Zach Brown, Graham Rahal, of course, right?
Pato, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, huh.
So, um, everybody was okay with Detroit last year. So the first thing I'm going to say a couple of things. I want to hear your thoughts on it. The first I'm going to say is I had obviously the pleasure of being able to sit into the post race press conference.
You
Scott
stream
Dixon.
that? You stream that,
I
right?
streamed it. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for you to take a look at. It's about 25 minutes. We did stream that live as it was happening, but we do have the recording of it. So, um, two things. Scott Dixon, who was not one of the ones missing Belial for obvious reasons, he won the race,
Yeah.
gave us two things. And I think it's 100% valid. Tires, we've heard this a lot. The tires are harder because they anticipated the cars being heavier. So the tires are harder, and it was cold. It was not your typical. It was colder than expected. It
Cool.
certainly was colder than it was last year.
Yeah.
And we did have this little bout of rain, which really wasn't rain, according,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
We live here, so I wouldn't really consider that rain, right? It was just a passing shower.
Yeah, it was just like spitting. Yeah.
Right. So, there was that. So what that happens in the words, and then Marcus Armstrong had a good point, and it was long braking zone going into turn 3. Long braking zone, and then cold tires, and very tired IndyCar drivers who just spent an entire month racing at Indianapolis and then came straight here, which they always do.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of that is what sort of calculates to a less than stellar Detroit Grand Prix.
Yeah. Like a
Last year's
messy
race was
race. It was
better.
messy. Yeah.
What was different?
I
Same
think
track, same cars, damn near the same drivers,
pretty much the same drivers, right? Yeah.
cooler temperatures, cloud
Hmm.
cover,
What you
a little bit
mentioned
of
was
rain,
different. Yeah.
different tires, right? So
Hmm.
now we're batting 500 because last year everybody was pretty pleased with it. This year,
It,
everybody sucks. So
and I think there's one more thing that you didn't mention is that it rained overnight, so all the rubber was washed
it
away,
did.
right? So that's
Yeah.
the other, variable that didn't take place last year. But to your point, it's the same race, taking all that stuff out, right?
Yeah.
Same track, no changes to the track.
If anything, there was amendments to it, right? Where they had amended some of the bumps and there was some patchwork that had taken place down Jefferson Avenue.
Yeah.
You could see that. You could also see some patchwork in that 3-4 complex, right? The hairpin, where you could see that there was
Hmm. Hmm.
some spots of repair there too. So
Hmm. Did you
if
watch the broadcast?
I did, I came home, watched it.
You did. Okay.
Uh huh.
I don't think it looked great on TV, honestly. Like it didn't.
It never does, but that is a complaint of yours because you think Toronto's awful on TV.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, it looks like
Yeah,
it's totally run down and
it's a
everything is
quilt,
from.
right? But like when you look at the streets in Toronto and Detroit, they look like a quilt, right? Like a bunch of different patches of every, like a
Hmm.
bunch of different colors and things all kind of woven together.
Yeah. And I'll say the front grandstand, which is just the finish line. It's not the start line. It's not the restart line. It's just the finish line. That didn't look very full this year from my
Where are you
perspective.
referring to? The on the
Right.
pit area.
Yeah, the pit area. That seemed a little light in attendance. Not that we're talking about attendance, we're talking about the
I
race,
didn't
right?
see it. I can't speak to it. I'll take your word for it, but I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah. I want to hear about the new podium because obviously you were there. The podium
Dude, that
was
was
like,
awesome. It looked great. We did get some pictures from that. My bride took some pictures, but it was from a distance, so we did the best we could with those. But it really looked cool. It
it
was
was
so cool
over
to have people up there.
it was over Pit Road. Is that
Yes, yeah,
okay?
the bridge that goes over Pit Road that you and I walked last year to go,
Hmm.
from one side to the other. It was in that
They
section.
didn't let all the fans on the track. Like that's what I was expecting, like it to be like uh like Italy, right? And
Yeah,
everybody just goes to the track and it wasn't
no, they did not.
they
Yeah,
did not let them out there. Hmm.
yeah.
Okay.
But at least not that I'm aware of. I did not go there. I was in the media center and then getting ready to go to the press conference. But to my knowledge, I don't believe so. But
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Hmm.
I think it looked great. I think that these are obviously the things that we should see more of at other IndyCar races because the IndyCar podium celebrations are terrible.
Yeah, somebody was
Yeah,
listening and
and
somebody
I
told us
am
to do
not going to
something about it.
sugarcoat that. That's terrible,
Yeah.
right? They're
Yeah,
embarrassing.
like Long Beach earlier this year was terrible. Like, what are they doing there? Like, let's
Long
do something.
Beach, thermal.
Something. I know, like every place for sure, but
Yeah.
I think of your premier street course and
Long
you
Beach, yeah,
have a
should have
podium
something
that's
pretty amazing. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Like,
Yeah.
hmm.
So we'll see
It's
what
good that
happens.
Detroit stepped up and did it. Obviously, Penske is the promoter, so he's the
Yeah.
one who's behind it, Penske Entertainment. And so, yeah, that was a good addition from last year. I'm sure it had nothing to do with the activity on track, but we talk about things that were different.
Right. Bud Danker was all over the place again. He, of course, runs the Grand Prix on behalf of Penske Corp.
And there's how many of him?
There's got to be at least six. It's got to be at least six
He gets
Bud
around
Danker
fast. It is
clones
one.
around
It's the
there.
smallest course in the series, so maybe that's just the reason you see him everywhere.
But as you know, it's not the easiest to get from one side to the other, right? Because you have the Renaissance Center right in the middle, and you've got that
Yeah,
riverfront and
yeah,
things like that. So it's not the easiest to get from one side to the other necessarily as quickly as you see Bud Danker.
yeah. I would say to get to north to south, I'll call it north to south, but it's
Yeah,
really not
east to
really.
west.
That's a long ways, right? There's
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Yep.
distance to travel.
Yep. Um, tempers. Temper.
Let's yeah. There's a lot of tempers, but the overall a lot of cautions, right? There's a lot
Oh,
of cautions.
47 laps of caution, 8 caution periods.
47%, almost 50% of the race. That's a
Totally.
lot.
47%, right? 100
I
laps.
put
Yeah.
that, yeah, I put that right on the drivers to
Hmm.
make sure you're making a pass when it counts and backing out when you cannot make it. And I feel like
Yeah.
for whatever reason, everybody was trying to go prematurely, which caused a lot of incidences, which started on lap one and
Yes.
turn three. And there were a lot of turn three contacts.
One,
One,
two,
two,
three, four, five,
four.
six, seven. 7 cars
Yeah, seven
involved in that
cars,
first
but you
in that
figure
first
turn
run.
three, which is the optimal passing area, you
That's the
had
first
one,
turn right
two,
after the start
yeah,
because you start on that straight. That's the alternate start finish line.
you had 5 cautions started in that area out of the
Yeah.
8 that actually happened. And then turn
Yep.
5 was the other problem area. And then you had McLaughlin in turn 1, but all the problem happened in turn 5 and turn 3.
Yeah.
And turn 5 comes out of that. Obviously, it's the second corner off of turn 3, but I know the track, right? And I'm sure our listeners know the track. It's that little, I'll call it a short shoot into really the back straight that people
Right.
were getting each other tangled up.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't remember last year watching everybody do this deep arc into that 3-4 complex, right? Where you're coming in, people are going outside and then they're coming in where half the field was still on the usual strategy of let's just keep it tight and come around. And then you had others that were coming around. And then you had people who were seeing this, what they perceived as being an opening, right? Because you've got traditional line, close into the wall, this 2024 line where people are trying to arc and carry it real wide, and they think there's a spot right there in the middle. Well, there is no spot right there in the middle. That's not
Mhm.
happening. So you're not going three wide into that turn. Turn
Yeah, because
five,
if you do, you're gonna end up causing a wreck, which we saw a lot
right?
of that three
A lot
wide.
of
And
that.
it's almost like the guy in the middle was the guy getting passed on the outside and the inside, and then the outside came down, did the arc as you
Yeah,
mentioned, and would hit the inside guy, not realizing there was a third car that was going for the same corner at the same time.
yeah. So a lot of very optimistic moves there in turn three, and it did not make for a great race. Hard tire, cold temperatures, cold hard tires, and some thoughts process that were ill advised.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they were still doing it. A lot of tempers, though. I mean, a lot of aggression. I think that much is obvious. I mean, and I think as you take your best example is Santino Ferrucci, pissed off just about everybody. Um, Kirkwood
Mm-hmm.
and Herta specifically, right? Did you see any of those replays from practice? And look, we're talking about practice, right? We're talking about practice. We're talking about these tempers flaring
Yeah,
from practice incidents. Did you see any of this?
I did see. Yeah, I saw a lot of it. There was a lot
How
on
did you
social
see it?
media. Initially, I saw it as Kirkwood blocking Ferrucci, Ferrucci taking the inside, and then Ferrucci coming out and hitting Kirkwood as he got the inside. Later to find out, I hear this is sort of the stack up area where people are trying to get their distances in order
Yeah,
to get in a good lap. So I see both sides of the story. I think there's some driver etiquette that says this is where we're working to space everything out. And if you come in this area on a hot lap, and you see cars stacked up, you're pretty much that lap doesn't count, right? It gets
yeah, you're
kind of
screwed.
thrown
Yeah,
out and you got to redo it. So I see that side of it. I see Ferrucci's side of it. Initially I was like, Kirkwood's at fault here, right?
yeah,
And because you're you're seeing Ferrucci come on a hot lap and you cut over. So I guess I see both sides. I think the thing of it is you got to have a cool head in that situation and know what the etiquette is. It's almost like unspoken, right? It's
yeah,
not talked about in the drivers meeting. There's no way, right? There's certain things that it's like golf. There's certain things, there's etiquette and ways you sort of present yourself and how you go about it. So I think at the end of the day, I'm really thinking it's Ferrucci's issue, right? He's taken issue with how they were lining up and decided to go in an area that was ill advised because not only did you have Kirkwood, you had Herta, and then you had someone in front of Herta too that you're never going to get your good lap in, anyways.
right. I think that the Kirkwood and Ferrucci situation is just racing and trying to get a spot on a very short track. When you come through five and then he's trying to come into six, Herta did turn in, and Herta wasn't turning in to turn six. He did turn in. So when Herta in the pits was like, I don't even know what I did, because he got looped into the whole thing. That's what you did.
Mm-hmm.
The Kirkwood thing. I put a little bit more of the blame on Ferrucci in that situation. Just looking at it a couple of times, I've seen it. I think it is what you said. We're just trying to get a hot lap in, and it's a short track, and it's difficult to do. People are starting to stack up there, and he just got caught up. Coming around that turn, Colton did turn in a little bit there, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just a jerk thing to do, right?
Chippy.
Yeah, and it's not great. I will tell you though, and I'm not, I don't advocate physical violence, but I did, for whatever reason, relish watching Santino Ferrucci shove Kyle Kirkwood out of his pit box. I did. For whatever reason, I relished that look because he is a small man, and even in compared to Kyle Kirkwood, but he put his hands on him, and that was it. He was out of his pit box.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Kirkwood, right, to his credit, left. And he left with a smile, and he thought it was funny. And a lot of people did think it was funny, but he left. you know.
It made for good social media. Hopefully, it was trending really well, and people that wouldn't have seen any IndyCar stuff saw some IndyCar stuff, and hopefully, some
Right.
people tuned in because there was some extracurricular activity that was I
Right.
don't know if I want to say common back in the day, but it
Yeah.
was part of
Oh yeah, sure.
the battle and part of the sort of there was villains and there's heroes and motorsports. There used to be all the time, and I think when they travel around all together, that they all become friends, and some of that stuff doesn't happen. So
Yeah.
you gotta have that, I think, a little bit.
Um, how about the line of Santino, is driving a Penske to 20th every weekend?
Yeah, that's a pretty it's a shot, right? That's a ugly shot. I would not consider him driving a Penske to 20th. I know they have that little technical alliance, but it's a low blow in my opinion.
Yeah,
I
it was
think
horrible.
Ferrucci's very talented. His head sometimes gets in the way of what he does, but then you got to look at who said it and what happens
Herta.
when he gets yeah,
The
what
$8 million
happens.
man who has no super license, but go ahead.
Yeah, and the guy who if something goes wrong in a race, he seems to throw it away.
Sure does, and he did this weekend, right? But we're going to get there. Let me ask you a question. So driving on Penske to 20th, he hasn't been doing. He has had two bad races: Long Beach 21st, Grand Prix of Indy, Indy GP 27th.
Hmm.
Ferrucci has an average finish of 13 and a half
This season.
this season,
Hmm.
driving a Penske,
Yeah.
right?
And hurt us.
What do you think it is?
15.2.
Hurtis is better than
It
Ferrucci.
is better.
Wrong.
Okay.
It's better than Ferrucci's, but not much.
13?
Honestly, it's 10,
It's 10. Okay. You're
right?
in an Andretti Global car,
Yeah.
and
You're the lead driver at
I was
Andretti
just gonna
Global,
say, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Lead driver, flush with sponsorship and cash. I can't believe you're still drinking that coffee. Good Lord. Um, I'm horrified. The
There's a little bit
10.3.
left.
He led the championship at one point, but he's fallen like a balloon, like a lead balloon here. Here's the deal. It's a low blow. It's an ugly shot. As far as expectations are concerned, Santino's probably might be overachieving a little bit,
I
right?
think so. Yeah.
Colton Herta?
Underachieving
Yep.
for sure.
Yep.
Finished 19th, by the way.
Yep.
Yep.
Sure did.
Mm-hmm.
Guess who finished ninth? And why did Herta finish
The guy
19th?
that started
So
10th.
here's where we're going to go, right? Here's where we're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Threw it away.
Totally.
He starts screaming at the pit box, right? At Rob Edwards, why didn't you see the rain on the radar? Why don't you know this thing's coming? Blah blah blah. Tim, it's not rain, right? It was a
No,
brief
it's
shower
not.
that blew
It's
through.
not on the radar.
It's not on the radar.
Not on the radar.
No, and
It's
they
a
even
brief
showed the radar.
pop-up shower. Yes.
So there's no way to be, prepared for that. You didn't see it
No.
coming. It's not coming. Nobody saw it coming.
Yeah.
You know who probably saw it was Penske Automotive, right? Penske, because Penske's people, a lot of them are from here, so they know what to expect, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. They probably saw it coming. Well, maybe potentially.
A lot of these Chevy people are from here.
Yeah.
They know what to
Yeah.
expect, right?
So then
But,
you come in for rain tires, and then the caution's way too long, right? And you
Way
never
too
really you never go green under really wet conditions. But then you go back to slicks. We're talking about Herta here, right? You go
Yep.
back to slicks, and then you try a move into turn 5 on the inside, and it's all wet, by the way.
So bad.
It's all wet.
So bad.
It was a amateur move.
You know who was really smart there is the guy who hasn't been in an IndyCar in like 8 years,
Yes, Tristan, right?
Yeah, Tristan Vautier.
Yeah.
He
He's like,
saw it
"Oh,
coming,
look at
was
this
smart
guy."
enough to get out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna hold it here to the right and let him go
Yep.
by, and then I'm turning in.
Yeah. How embarrassing.
Yeah.
So,
It's-
shame. It's a bummer. I think a lot of this, Tim.
It's not a bummer. It's just a dumb.
It's a dumb move. I've been saying, I say that all the time, right? That's a dumb thing,
Bonehead. Yeah.
right?
Bonehead.
Yeah, that's a dumb thing. Um,
And did you hear the interview before the race with Rob Edwards saying, "Well, we're hoping it's just a two-stop race and everything goes to plan on it, and it's just a normal race." I'm like, "You're in Detroit. It's a tight street course. It's not going to be normal. There's nothing normal about this race.
Nothing.
So don't plan on it." I
It's
don't know
usually
what
a two-stop race. Do you know how many? You know what the average stops were for the top 12? I have it written down somewhere.
the average, if I could do really fast math, it's going to be almost 3.7.
Yeah, it's almost four.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a couple of two stoppers. It would be your first and second place as well as your third place.
Right, fourth.
Oh no, your fourth place, sorry.
Yeah,
And then a lot of four stoppers and someone with a five stopper made it in the top 10.
yeah. Teal Porsche.
That's a four. Well,
Yeah.
no, it's Santino with five stops.
Oh, Santino, you're right.
Yeah.
So, um, and somehow Will Power, who had three more stops, right, for penalties,
Oh yeah, they don't
still
count those,
managed a
right?
sixth place finish. Yeah, but
Yeah.
we'll talk about that.
Hmm.
Bumpy street course. Everybody's tired from May at Indy, and tempers are flaring. Qualifying really wasn't any better. Again, AJ Foyt Racing sort of plays a feature in some of some of people's aggravation, and in this case, it was Monsieur Romain Grosjean
Hmm.
was having some problems. Marched down over to AJ Foyt Racing to have a conversation with Larry Foyt. Here's the thing. I know he doesn't move the way he used to, but I'm sure he's still AJ Foyt inside. So these boys, Kyle Kirkwood and Romain Grosjean, are lucky that AJ Foyt is not in Detroit because they would have gotten a slap on the back of the neck that I'm sure Ari Leindyke still feels to this day. Okay?
That's funny.
So they would
That
have
is
thought
true,
differently
right?
of it.
It's the wrong team to be messing with.
Yes, if Supertex was there, because Larry is a different personality than AJ. Let's put it to you that way. Speaking of Grosjean, can we take a minute here?
Yeah, we can have a minute with Grosjean. I think he's the fan favorite amongst all IndyCar drivers right now. But keep going.
Yeah, he and Santino Ferrucci are tied for most popular. You heard the radio exchange where he basically said, my championship is over and blah blah blah, and I don't care, and sounded you like he was
Yeah,
giving up.
Yeah, he's having a little temper tantrum, a little
He was.
fit, like a child, right? Is
Yep.
that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think he has to be reminded it's not Formula One where if you're just down in a race, you just give up and park the car.
Right. Yeah, because it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
There's a
IndyCar
championship
works.
within the championship, and that's the leader circle payouts
Correct.
from
Absolutely
IndyCar.
right.
And whatever turns out to be this charter system, which certainly is
Yeah.
going to have a limit, right? They're going to draw a line somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of things to consider when you're a small budget team like Juncos, in where you finish in the championship, what this charter situation is going to be, and if you have this driver that you took into your team in place of somebody who was a quality up and comer, nice person, and everything else, Callum Ilon,
Mm-hmm.
you got to hope that the guy's head's all in it 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. I think
It's a shame.
yeah, it's a total shame. And I think it's just like this race is just keep your nose clean, keep your head down, shut up, right?
And
just
get to Road America. We have 4 miles to start.
Yeah. I think that's how this race sort of is, and this is how you got to come into it. And everything's not going to go your way. When it doesn't go your way, you just need to continue. You mentioned willpower. How many issues did he have? And he's
Tons.
top 6 out of it.
Yeah. Yes, keeping his head down, right? An adult being an adult, professional race car driver, champion, being Tim, stop drinking that coffee. Being a champion and
I'll set it down.
and doing the right thing. Like, who's the guy that won it? Scott Dixon, right? Champion. The Iceman. He's not going to let all this other stuff kind of get in his way. Herta was holding him up. He could have easily done something down there, right? If he weren't Scott Dixon
Mm-hmm.
and threw away his entire finish.
Yeah, his gas mile, the way he can pedal a car to get gas mileage is unreal.
It is. It is. And I think some of that is Honda, which, by the way, right, 4 of 6 in Fast 6 qualifying for Honda in Detroit after a no-show at Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
And then finishing and taking the first through fourth place in the final results.
Yeah, you sweep the podium
Honda.
plus the fourth in
Chevy's
backyard.
shadow. Yeah, right? The shadow of Chevy land.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So
yeah.
kudos to Honda for doing that, but kudos
Absolutely.
to the drivers that were just making it with regard to pit stops and being able to get the fuel mileage that they did to make the win and still have enough to do the parade lap, I guess we'll call it. I guess I should say the lap. And a burnout. So that was good. Where you heard others like Armstrong ran out of fuel after crossing the line,
Right.
which he got passed with a couple laps to go by the other Marcus Ericsson.
Yep.
So yeah,
Former teammate.
So I think the point is when you look at Roman Grosjean, you'll
occupying a seat that somebody could have taken that would relish being in that seat, proving themselves being in that seat, not just racing for fun, right?
Yep. Got it.
Honda looked good. I want to talk about Elio Castroneves for a little bit. It's qualifying, and then we're going to lead to the race and then the bigger picture. So Elio is in this car because they decided that Tom Blomqvist needed a couple of weeks off. The car is not in the leader circle. What did we just talk about?
By the way,
leader circle. That's how I read it to begin with. Everybody else was all clutching their pearls yesterday. Oh my God, I can't believe Marty Snyder just said that he's going to be out for the season. That's how I read it. I don't know why it's a shock to everybody else. I'm just some dumb with a podcast and a mic. So Elio Castroneves decides to step in because, he's already on payroll, right? Qualified 25th. Where did he finish, Timmy? I'll give you a hint. Rhymes with 25th.
25th. 5 laps down.
He didn't exactly light the world on fire when he was in that car full time last year. I scratched my head as to why Elio would be in this car. But bail me out of here, Timmy. Or come on in. The water's warm.
I think I'm gonna jump in, but keep going.
Tim, I think the wrong guy, right? I think that Connor Daly, and then of course in my social media circles, in my text, people.
Yep.
Connor Daly, Oliver Askew.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty capable of being in that car.
Could be a budget thing.
Could be.
Could be a budget thing. And Elio has been around for years. He's 49.
And he's on payroll.
He's on payroll. So maybe that's the reason. I don't think it's the right choice. I'm still curious to hear more about Tom and what the situation is there because he was a Zimsa driver, right?
Yeah.
And drove for IMSA. He's still around. Is it just not working out? Did Tom say he wasn't into it mentally or something? I don't know what's going on. It's a very bizarre situation.
Very. It said in the original, the announcement that Tom was sitting down, that it was mutually agreed upon. So maybe Tom Blomqvist does feel like, hey, this is high stakes, and I'm not real sure it's going to come around, and I'm putting this ride and the team budget for next year at risk. So maybe we put somebody else in there. Maybe we give somebody else in there. So I'm going to give you a few theories. The first theory I'm going to give you is one that I think is the easiest to understand, at least from my own perspective. I believe Meyer Shank will be back in IMSA next year with the Acura program. It will go away from Andretti. It will go back to Meyer Shank after having their 1-year timeout, right? Mm-hmm. So that's that. Because I believe Andretti, with their global aspirations to take Cadillac to Formula One, lends a perfect relationship for Ganassi, who's already announced that they're not going to be with Cadillac next year, to assume that Cadillac program at Andretti Global.
Makes sense.
In IMSA. So you gotta move that Acura team somewhere. Going to go back to Shank. Cadillac goes to Andretti,
Andretti.
whatever happens to Ganassi, right? But so with Shank going back to IMSA, you already have Tom on payroll. You need to keep Tom in the family. You do like Tom. Tom's a very, very capable sports car driver, right? Prototypes. So let's let him go home to Miami or Monaco or wherever it is that he lives. We'll catch you at the end of the season, dude. Right? When we
Mm-hmm.
start testing again in the GTP.
Yep.
So that's
I
that.
can't disagree. That seems very logical, and seems like that is what is going on in
Yeah.
both series and what's going to happen here in the future.
Here's the stretch. Elio gets you to Laguna Seca in about a month. Let's call it a month. Where David Malukas might be seeing some progression in his rehab. And we see David stepping into that car, right, through the end of the season.
I don't
And the
hate
number
that.
66. I don't hate
I
that.
don't, no, I don't hate that. That seems like a very, very um, situation that could prevail and could
Yeah.
happen. I don't know if having Alio in there right now makes sense to get there. I think you could do
No.
better.
So do I.
Uh, so to get yourself into which I saw things where Felix should switch to that car to get it into the leader's circle sort of the position. But yeah,
I wonder what the rule is on that.
I saw the rules. It was laid out and it looks like it's possible, but I wouldn't do
Wow.
that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I think
No.
you bring somebody else in there.
Yeah. So, Elio, hugely popular, big fan, have been for a long time. Brought in to stop the bleeding. The patient is still very much
Yes,
bleeding.
and we'll continue.
Yep.
I
I wish I
don't
could
see.
take credit for that line, but of course that's Phil from Shelby. Give me that
Yeah.
line. But nevertheless, Elio at Road America, what do you think? He turns it around?
No, not a chance. He's going to spin out and put it in the gravel several
Yikes.
times during practice. We'll qualify not so good, and we'll have a horrible race.
Yeah.
That's my prediction.
Well,
What do
so
you
you're
think, Dan? You think
I
he's
don't disagree. I think he's up for a 23rd, 24th place finish, right? Like if it's top 15, I think it would be a serious, serious win. Um,
Yeah, and you got Rosenquist, which I know we're probably going to talk, who in the same
Carr
car.
was killing it, right?
Yeah,
He had a
went from
horrible
22nd
qualifying,
to 8th.
22nd to 8th place.
Yeah. Well, Felix has come
He's
around,
driving
which is
around in an
good.
Andretti in 8th place when, Herta, we've already piled on Herta. Herta was driving around in 19th in an Andretti.
I don't, yeah. It's interesting when you look at the box score, like all these cautions, all this contact. There was one car out for mechanical, nobody
Right,
out for
one.
damage to
Right,
their vehicle.
one.
So,
Yeah,
what does that tell you? It tells you the Delora is very, very durable, and maybe that's the issue. If it broke, maybe
yeah,
people wouldn't take the risk that they take. But when you're bouncing off individuals and you just keep going like go-karting,
yeah.
take a look at that. Those pieces should be a little
Yeah,
more brittle.
Pourchaire was driving down Jefferson with the right hand in his lap because his steering was so far off, right?
He was in
And
a
he
consistent right-hand turn the whole
brought it
race.
home 10th, right? He was going through that left hairpin turn with the wheel straight, right?
That's an exaggeration,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yes. So,
It
right,
looked like he
this
was
car is
unbelievable and shouldn't have been. Yeah,
very
it was
right,
bad.
very durable,
So,
right? If you knew you were going to break it bouncing off somebody, I think they'd bounce off of each other a lot less often.
yeah, exactly. So take that aspect. I'm not saying you make the car more breakable, but maybe in situations like this,
Yeah.
keep people from just like bullying themselves into a corner. It's like a bowling ball and pins and knocking people out of the way.
Yeah.
Penalties don't seem
Um,
to matter. You get penalties and still finish sixth.
yeah.
So
Willpower.
I know, yeah.
Um,
Even Santino, you get a top 10 and you have
yeah,
penalties, right?
he
I don't know
did.
how many of these guys up here had penalties, but I'm
He
sure
got
there's a lot of
penalties.
them. I got to look at them. Penalties
So
go on forever.
Go on and on. The so Ericsson. Speaking of guys who needed to turn their season around, not their car around, but Ericsson was calling this 2024 2.0. He was calling it the reset. The reset didn't exactly start as anticipated. He crashed on Friday, needed some repair, had a battery issue on Saturday, which I'm sure everybody was just coming undone with that. Decent qualifying, ninth place. That's a decent qualifying, Tim, with
Hmm.
everything going against you all weekend long. But the reset finally hit for the race. He finished second.
And he was the top finisher of Andretti Global.
Andretti Global.
Look at that.
Yeah, he needs to prove himself. I think he's overdriving it. Um, I think he's overdriving it, right? And he's trying to prove himself out of the gate as opposed to just going in there and doing what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. Like everybody's like on him to perform and do really well. I think his first year with an Andretti Global, where you had Alexander Rossi coming out of Andretti Global, which was not Andretti Global at the time, and it goes over to Arrow, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's the first year. He's just getting
Yeah.
used to the new team." There's pressure there too to perform, which he did.
Hey, so yeah, speaking of Arrow, so Pourchaire, who we talked about with the crooked wheel, he qualified seventh. He was definitely the class of that team in qualifying. Um, right? Award started 12th. Rossi started 16th, which was a mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I said after Indy that I think that this team is finally starting to figure out their stride. And I
Yep.
think that that's definitely the case. They have three cars in the top 10, Timmy. Rossi leading this top 10 brigade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rossi in fifth, Award in seventh, and then Pourchaire in a badly damaged car brings it home 10th. Better than the Penske's, by the way, because outside of Will Power, who nobody has any understanding why in the hell he finished sixth or how in the hell he finished sixth, Scotty Mack had a situation on his own. It
Yep.
looked at one point like he was going to get out of the car and try to bump start it himself. Finished 20th, and then Newgarden got bounced off a couple of times too. Spun on his own. They tried to put that blame on somebody, but he spun on his own and ended up finishing 26th. So,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
um, interesting situation there. So I think Arrow McLaren. This is a sign of things to come. Rossi's in a contract year. I don't know what happens there. I've had him leaving there. I've had him going to Shank, to be honest with you,
Yeah, I don't
at
think
the
he's
end of
going
the
to
year.
stick around. You look at what Zach does. There's no way
I
he's
think he
sticking.
will. I think he will. It's a question of whether or not McLaren wants him back.
Yeah,
That's really
I
the
don't think
question.
he's a
Award's
great
married to that
brand.
team, right? The
Yes,
number
totally.
six. I'm not of the opinion that the number six is already etched for Pourchaire. I'm not of that opinion.
Well,
Whose
Newgarden
that is,
signed,
don't
right? That
know.
was news this week. He signed with
Newgarden signed at Penske,
Penske.
so there's no room at the end there, unless Power decides to leave. But I don't think that's happening. So
Well, the exchange of helmets had people wondering
didn't
what was
that
going
freak
on there.
everybody out? Had tongues wagging. Oh my God, Will's going to retire,
Yeah.
right? No, that's PR with Team Penske, knowing that people understand now that that team doesn't get along. So you had to take the two
You're saying
guys
that
who
was all
were,
fabricated?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Tim, how
That's
long have they
interesting.
been teammates? Joseph Newgarden's been there
Um,
for 8 years. He won the
that
500
was.
last year. Will won the championship, what, 3 years ago?
Mm-hmm. And now they finally came together and
Now all of a
said,
sudden we're swapping helmets, right?
yeah, I guess it could be well, yeah, you kind of propped them all up in front of each other
Yeah,
and said, let's do this exchange and let's put it on social media and
yeah,
let's show the world that we're one team working towards one goal and
yeah.
all is good in the world. So,
Which is a great big bologna sandwich.
so who
Um,
ate this bologna sandwich?
what's that?
Who ate the bologna sandwich?
Yeah.
Everybody was.
No, nobody bought that nonsense. Everybody, I think, sees it for what it is. Willpower, we've talked about it a lot, but let's bottom line it. Willpower, sixth place, Emergency service in a closed pit, lap 3. Restart at the back of the field. 27 cars still in this field still, right? At
Mm-hmm.
that point. Failure to pack up under yellow, lap 39. Yield 3 positions. Avoidable contact, lap 44. Restart back of the field. Only 26 cars in the field at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Full service in a closed pit, lap 60. Drive-through penalty. Finish 6th, Tim. How in the hell did that happen?
You know, I honestly don't know.
I
I
bet you
think
if
it
you
was
asked Will, he'd have no
to
idea.
watch this race and understand who was on what strategy and where it was all going to sort of pan out. It was difficult to follow, and I think the announcers did what they could to keep people up to speed, but it's just so chaotic. It becomes, let's just see how they're running 10 laps from now because you don't know what's going to go down. I with all that, you don't ever finish in the top 10, excuse me. So how he did it, I couldn't tell you. I could probably watch the race two, three more times and maybe let you know.
Yeah. How about our boy Ferrucci finished 9th? Avoidable contact lap 22, stop and go. That's a harsh penalty. This was the wreck he caused with Kevin Simpson and Elio. He didn't, like I said, he didn't run around 20th in a Penske. He finished ahead of Herta. Colton finished 19th. So Ferrucci, as you said, right, in the penalty summary, for the car 14 has a couple of line items there, right? At least one.
Yeah, he's got the
So,
avoidable contact. At
yep.
least that one that I see here
Yeah.
on the summary. So
So
yeah,
good on
so he
him.
had that, but keep your car clean after that, and you got more yellow. It's just a lot of packed racing, right? I think
Yep.
one of the stats that I saw was from lap 40 to 59 or something, some crazy number. They were under yellow for that long,
I
a
know.
long time
Yeah.
with
There was
green
something weird in race control
yellow.
there with that.
Yeah, 40 to 59 is what I'm seeing. Almost
Yeah.
to 69 actually, but that's when it started to it's when people sort of put their heads on straight and started racing and not just bumping into each other.
Yeah. Scott Dixon with the win, 58th career victory, which puts him 9 wins out of a tie with AJ Foyt. Dixon's second win of the season, similar way for both, right? Bumpy street course, saving fuel. While Scott's teammate, Phenom, Alex Palou, landed with his worst finish since 2022, Tim.
That's crazy.
Finished 16th place. That is crazy. As competitive as this series is, he hasn't had a bad finish, right? His worst finish in 2 years.
I think that's his first out of the top 10.
There you go. I think you're right. I think you're right about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that's interesting. And they made the wrong like they made the wrong strategy call on tires, which was very interesting, which led
Yes.
everybody else to understand what the tire situation was. You start on scuffed green tires,
Green
which is
tires, right?
the
Alternates. Yeah.
soft ones, yeah. And they go off really bad, which in the beginning, I'm thinking if he gets in front of Herta at the time, he's going to run away with this.
Yep.
And then they go to commercial, which is side by side, by the way, if you're watching it on USA. And by the time they come back, he's in fifth or sixth place
And
and
dropping. Yeah.
dropping, yeah, like an anchor off the side of the boat. And it played, I was hoping that would play out more rather than cautions, but that was huge. That kind of told the story. And then once you have the rain sort of come into play, then at that point, I don't think anybody has to use the alternate. And so
No.
you stay on the hard compound as long as you have enough there to run the hard all the way through the race. So very surprising for Alex Palou, but at the same time, he's well overdue. Like
Yeah.
so,
For
so
a
it's
little
it's
bit
gonna
bad luck.
happen.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna happen on a course other than a course like this, which is tight, narrow, and just kind of bumpy. I don't see it happening, him falling back on like a road course that is a natural terrain course that is designed for Indy cars to drive on. So
It wouldn't surprise anybody. He goes to Road America and wins next week.
no, no one would,
Not at all.
bat an
Not
eye
at
at that.
all. Ericsson finishes second. We already talked about. Armstrong finishes third. That's two. Ganassi in the top three on the podium there. Armstrong must be a listener of the show. Heard me say that I thought that Lundqvist was going to be a better driver at Ganassi than Armstrong, because since then he has proved me wrong. So we'll see what happens. He's definitely putting it together, but you have to in that team because that team is just too good not to. Lundqvist, by the way, finished 22nd, which was two ahead of the fifth member of Chip Ganassi Racing, Kevin Simpson, who was taken out by Santino Ferrucci.
Yeah.
Andretti,
I like Armstrong. I like where his head is. I think
I know you do. You were a fan of his last year.
Mm-hmm.
You picked him a lot, dark horse.
Yeah, and I was disappointed last year with where he finished, but I think he's finally coming around. And
which is why I thought
Lundqvist
was a better driver.
in a lot of these races.
Right.
What'd you say?
I said, which is why I thought Lundqvist was a better driver.
But as you noted,
not the case.
Proving you wrong
so far. Yeah, which is fine. Andretti Global, they were good here, Tim. Ericsson second, they were good here, right? Until Herta threw it away. Ericsson second, Kirkwood fourth, Rosenqvist eighth. I know that's a bit of a stretch, but I could kind of lump him into the Andretti cars because of that alliance. Herta with the dum-dum move of the century, finishes 19th. So
you didn't add Castronettas.
I didn't, because we already tore apart the Dancing with the Stars champ, 4-time IndyCar, Indy 500 winner.
I love the guy, but come on now.
So do I.
Your time's over.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would imagine, Tim, it's got to be hard to shift gears to put the helmet back on and go get in that car, knowing the entire off season, the only time I'm going to get in that thing's the Indy 500, and now all of a sudden I'm in a bumpy street race in Detroit, and I've got to go to Road America, and I got to race there too, which is hard and physical because it's smooth as glass, and these cars have no power steering and a lot of downforce and a lot of fast turns.
This is year 2 of the repave, right?
Right.
Year 2, yeah. So
it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's skip that. The any other notable teams or drivers you got, Timmy?
Well, I think you got to wonder where Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan is, right? Like I feel like they just don't show, and you got one really, really good driver that can drive just about anything, and you have others on that team that just can't make it happen. And it's tough to see that and continue to watch that when I think the team is very well funded, to your point earlier about another team.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on there. And you have your blunders at Indy, right, with some qualifying issues.
After the whole vaunted year-long Project Indy, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm. And then you come here and you lay an egg with one exception.
Right.
I don't like the Fittipaldi move. I never liked it when it was announced. I was kind of scratching my head of why that came together. I think Graham needs to go on the business side of the operation and hang on.
Or the BMW. Go into sports cars.
Or do that, but that's not what he wants. Obviously, it's not what he wants. He can go and do whatever he wants there. So I don't know. What did they sign him for, a multi-year contract? Graham to be behind the wheel. This was the big.
His name's on the building. I'm sure he can do whatever he wants to whenever he wants to.
Well, that's what people
right?
say, but you got to make sure the sponsors are behind him doing that.
And I'm sure they are.
I don't know why.
I think there's a reason why he's there. I think Fittipaldi's there because Fittipaldi brought that 5-hour energy or whatever. And Lundgaard brings nothing but talent and a helmet.
Like the commercial.
So do I.
But
so do I.
Besides that, it's not gonna turn into results on the track. Don't look for him to have a good finish at all this year, Fittipaldi.
No, I agree. Lundgaard finishes 11th from 11th. Fittipaldi finishes 13th from 15th, and Graham finishes 15th from 20th. Last year was rock bottom for them in Detroit. So, as far as where they finished this weekend and where they showed for the weekend, it's an improvement. It's definitely an improvement.
It is an improvement, but
everybody else is improving. Shank is improving, right, with Felix. Andretti Global is improving by
AJ Foyt
contracting to three
Racing.
cars. AJ Foyt Racing is improving. So,
Hmm.
you know, Ray
The
Hall
bar's set
continues to
high,
try to
right?
catch up. Yeah.
The
And
bar's
their
set high. The car's been around for 12 plus years. Everybody
engine,
understands the
yeah.
car. Yeah, the engine's been around forever. Even though you had the engine blow up, which is the only
Yeah.
mechanical issue that happened, the only car that DNF'd, which I was for sure it was going to be a Honda, but closer look, it was a Chevy.
I should say
Uh,
that. So I said that Graham qualified 20th. He qualified 14. He had a 6 grid penalty because he an unauthorized engine change.
okay.
Honda was able to identify a part which was causing some of the issues with the engine reliability. So they made that
Yeah, and
engine change.
I felt Juncos had a good run too. Like their cars were
Yeah.
up there. They've improved a lot, right? So they have some
Yes.
technical alliances that help are helping them along.
Yeah.
Um, but
Canapino
they're
finishes 12th. Hey, can I tell you something about Augustine Canapino? I'm pretty sure he drove himself to Detroit.
oh, he did.
Yep, because I saw him leaving the same parking garage I was parked in. He was eating a sandwich, driving the car, and he honked at some woman to get her out of his way as he was coming down the ramp, which I thought was a beautiful thing.
That's
He needed to
funny.
get home, Tim,
Wherever home might be, right?
and the
Was this
car he
after the
was
race, you
driving had
said?
a Indiana plate on it too. Not
So
a
this was after the race?
Yeah, well after the race because I was there through the press conference and all that stuff, and we were coming down. He was changed, looked showered and ready to go, and then we followed Elio Castronevis's rig out of.
So all the listeners want to know what was he driving?
I don't want to say.
Why
Well, it's a
not?
company car. I don't know. I don't want to say.
Oh, was it a company car?
Yeah,
Oh, all right. It wasn't okay. Very
yeah. It
good.
wasn't anything in a like a. He wasn't driving a Bentley, or he wasn't driving. He wasn't driving
Could
a
it just be a
Sequoia or
rental, maybe?
something, right? No, because it had the Indiana plate on it.
Could have rented it in Indiana drive.
Could have, but it was an actual
You'll have to tell
like
me when
plate.
we
Yeah,
close the
yeah,
show.
yeah.
Okay.
You won't be surprised. It's completely innocuous.
All right.
I just thought it was funny. I'm like, oh, it's Augustine Canapino smashing a sandwich in his face. This guy just honked at that woman to get her out of her way. So,
Oh Lord.
um, 5 teams, Timmy, in the top 10 in championship points. Chip Ganassi Racing first and second with Dixon and Palou. No surprise. Penske, Will Power still in third place. Scotty Mack in eighth and Joseph Newgarden in 10th. They're both obviously digging themselves out of a hole from their disqualifications from St. Pete.
St. Pete. Yep.
Yep. Aaron McLaren,
And even Power had a
pleasantly,
10-point
yeah,
reduction.
10, but
So
it was like a net 2 because he
was it
was
from when he
elevated to
moved
second
up
place.
in
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Aaron McLaren, award fourth. Alexander Michael Rossi, fifth.
Hmm.
Andretti has 3 in the top 10. Kirkwood seventh, Kirkwood sixth, Hurtis seventh, and Rosenquist ninth.
I like the way you have them sort of wrapped in there.
I know that's pushing it. I'm sorry.
I
So
know.
yeah, nonetheless, Rosenquist is in ninth.
All right. And then
So
there's a few that are lurking.
who's lurking, Tim? Your guy, the High V Honda
Armstrong.
guy,
Yeah, it's Armstrong. He's the lurker.
and Armstrong. Yeah,
Yeah.
the High V Honda guy, Lundgaard, is lurking right behind it. See what happens there. I think he's playing for a contract. If I were Christian Lundgaard, I wouldn't be in a hurry to re-sign that
He's
that
going
deal with
elsewhere
Ray
for sure.
Letterman. Yeah, I think he's got options.
Oh yeah, I think he
What
does
they
too. I
are,
think
you don't know. I think Errol McLaren is the most obvious option.
in Rossi's spot
Could be.
could be. That wouldn't
Could be.
surprise me by any means.
Yeah, could be. And like I said, I want to remind everybody to watch the live stream of the post-race press conference. Enlightening stuff. It's cool stuff. We don't normally see that. I wanted to make sure that we brought that to our listeners, and it's insightful. It's cool stuff. And then I did not stay for the Detroit Grand Prix post-race presser, but in that, I'm told that Bud Denker, who runs the Grand Prix, who I mentioned earlier today, track isn't changing. And I
Maybe
know
not for
we're
next year, but I
I
would
know we're getting
assume
close
years
here,
to come.
so I want to get your theories so I can tell you you're wrong on the impact that GM moving out of the Renaissance Center down the street to the Hudson Building, which is what they're calling it,
Mm-hmm.
um,
And the reason
could
why it's the
potentially
Hudson
have on
building,
this. It's on the site of the former Hudson's
department store.
store. Yeah, department store.
Yeah. 4 or 5 story store
Yeah.
back in the day. You want my theory now, or you want my
I
theory
do
on
want your theory now because we only have one more show, Tim. So,
Oh, well, I just think they're gonna make a change. It's gonna happen. GM's
why?
moving it. So you're still going around the GM headquarters. I call it the Renaissance Center.
Yeah,
I
well, that's
think
what it
you
is.
need to
Yeah.
make a difference or make a change in the circuit after last year and seeing what happened this year. There's got to be change. I don't think it's sustainable to be in the location you're at with potentially a empty Renaissance Center, driving around that, showing Detroit blight, if you will. And you got to move it. So I think it's going to go more where all the action is happening downtown, because that area is sort of off by the river, as you saw from the TV coverage. And I think GM's motto is bring it to our home, bring it around our building, and let um, us showcase what we're all about. And I don't think you do that by keeping it in the same area. So I forget exactly when their move is 25, 26, maybe even 27, but they're going to move. And I think the track will move to more of the part of the city that is more vibrant, and it'll be really, really awesome.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see.
You're thinking they're going to keep it exactly where it is.
Yeah.
I will say where it's at, it causes the least amount of
Disruption
issues. Yeah,
to the
disruption.
city.
Yeah. But I
Because
don't
to
think you can
the
put on a
east,
marquee event and not
yeah,
disrupt the city.
because you have the east, you've got residential. To the west, I think you've got some flexibility there. Formula One used to go under the, the
Bobo?
yeah, Cobble Hall, whatever. I'm trying to think of what we call it now, Huntington Center.
Huntington Center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Formula One used to go under
Onto the
Huntington Center.
expressway, right? Yeah, on the
Yeah.
expressway there. Yeah.
So that
So,
there, is there an option for something near possibly kind of working in that direction? Again, kind of taking some of the disruption out, adding a little bit to the track, maybe, 2 or 3 tenths of a mile, which
mhm.
I think would help. But going down Woodward with these cars, I don't see it. I don't see it, but it's possible. Anything's possible. I don't
I
see it.
think I see it in the future. I think I
Sure
can
as hell
map.
ain't going back to
I'm gonna
Belle
take it
Isle. So
on
keep
upon me to
dreaming.
map. I'm gonna take it upon me to map out the new route,
There you go. Good job.
based on
Tim
Detroit
Reiner,
City Limits.
topography.
Yep, it's gonna be good. Everybody's gonna enjoy it. It's gonna be marquee.
I love it. That's all I got, Tim.
Same here. It's always a good time.
It was a good time. I will tell you, I enjoy being down there. I enjoy pretending to be a member of the press. I shouldn't say pretending because we are there to report and we're doing what we said we were going to do. It is so hard. It really is. It is so hard for me to see and know everything that's going on. This is my third time doing it, right? You and I have done it a couple of times, and then this is my third time doing it. And I
Mhm.
still feel like I have no idea what the hell's happening around me.
What do you mean by that?
Like being on the ground and walking around, I still feel like I don't know what's going on. Like I don't know what's going on track. I don't know who led what session. I didn't know that, Erickson wrecked until I saw it on the replay on Twitter, and I didn't,
Well,
things like that. So
I think
I
that's
didn't
the
know that.
nature of a street course,
Yeah,
right? There's so much that happens on a street course that how do you
yeah,
keep up and how do you stay in the loop on everything that's happening? But
yeah,
I get it. Even if you're in the media center, there's plenty of screens to keep up, right? You
yeah.
just got to sit put if you're a you just got to stay
It
there.
is. Yeah,
And yes, you can hear them go by, but you're not out seeing the actual activity. You're stuck in there watching TVs and understanding unless you have a specific assignment and you got a specific corner or area that you're covering. Other than that, you're not going to see the whole thing and understand
right.
everything.
All right, that's it. That's all I got. I enjoyed it. It's good to see you. We'll be back
Good to
right
see
here
you
after
as
Road America, right? We'll do it one more time.
2 weeks?
And then we're putting the show on hiatus.
2 weeks?
1 week.
Oh, 2 weeks from today. It's not this weekend.
1 week.
Okay. 1 week. Road America.
It's this weekend.
There's no way.
It's this weekend, Tim. I'm leaving for Road America on Thursday.
I'm looking at the schedule.
I will be home on Monday.
June 9th.
What's today?
The 3rd or 2nd. I don't know what it is.
3rd.
It is this weekend. Holy moly. This is coming up faster than I ever thought.
Yeah. It was 1 week later last year.
Which I just was going off last year. I wasn't looking at.
Yeah, it was 1 week later last year.
Schedule. But I have the schedule up. June 9th. And then there's a break until the 23rd for Laguna.
Gives David Maluka some time to heal that hand. Get on the number 66.
Yeah, I thought that was further out, but they brought that in this year to redo the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, Olympics, I think.
Yeah, that's a long journey.
Sure is. To come back here for Ohio.
Yeah, because then you're in Mid-Ohio, July 7th, which is the July 4th weekend, if you will, which they've been doing. And then you got the 2 high V stops, which is, the 13th and 14th, so the week after.
Guess who potentially had a meeting in Iowa on the 15th?
You potentially. So you will be potentially.
No, I opted for the 23rd instead. And it's easier to fly into.
You're going to Toronto, right?
No, South Dakota. And it's easier to fly into South Dakota. So anyway.
No, the 21st is Toronto. Are you going to the
I'm not going there.
No. I was going to say that.
I'm done. Our next race is we're going to go to Road America, and then our race after that is going to be Nashville.
Oh, so you're doing Nashville?
Yeah.
On the oval. That takes you all the way to September 15th. The kids are back in school, at least my kids.
Your kids. My children are not, but I am busy. June and July, I've got a lot of travel already.
Yeah.
If I'm booking travel, Tim, July 23rd or something, it's June 3rd, I'm busy.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why podcast is going on hiatus.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right? Turn 4 is pulling into the pit for a little while.
Yeah. Well, we'll just say you got a blown engine.
Don't say that. Don't say that. So, all right. Hey, good to see you.
Yep, same here.
And we'll catch you next week. Thanks, everyone.